Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Christina, Pius, and AJ to talk about peel back the covers and show you a little bit about how we make customer success here at Elastic.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so my name is Christina Frost. I'm here with my friends Pius and AJ, and we're going to show you how Elastic elastics, but specifically in the context of customer success, and more specifically in the context of how we use Elasticsearch to enrich our CRM environment. So before we do that, customer is actually a little bit of a loaded term, right? So when people say the word customer, for us it actually means a set of flexible layers that we use when we think about developing these features. That can be anything from the top level logo, so that's something like IBM, right, to the more standard Salesforce architecture that if those of you who develop in CRM are familiar with, accounts, opportunities, quotes, contracts, that sort of thing. And then the actual projects and the cases that go on for our customers, which Pius is going to speak a little bit about later. The important thing here is that these layers give us an architecture where any customer feature that we develop, we can execute at any level, right? So we could say, show us all the licenses for IBM, and that might mean way up here at the top, or we can say, show us the licenses specifically for IBM Watson, and we attach that at the subscription level. So the things that we're going to be talking about today, AJ is going to give you a preview of how we handle licensing in Salesforce. He'll pull back the covers of our infrastructure there. Pius is going to show you how we enrich the experience of a support engineer through case search and case analytics. And I'm going to come back and talk about how we roll all of this together in an algorithm that we call Customer Insights as part of our renewals early warning system. So AJ, take us away.
Thank you. So we start on the left here. We have the Elastic License Portal, which under the covers is a Ruby on Rails app that has an Elastic cluster in the back end. And we use it for two main use cases. Number one, if your internal employees can go and check check on licenses for existing customers, see what's going on there. And then secondly, once you buy a subscription with us, we send you an email with the license that has a link back to the portal, and you can download it and apply it to your cluster. So throughout the period of the day, there's different license creation, different events going on. So we use the power of Amazon Lambda and Node.js to take all the events that have happened in that last hour and then push them into Salesforce. And then once they're in Salesforce, it unlocks the power that Christina was talking about in applying those things to the different layers so you can see how licenses traverse throughout the hierarchy that we have. The next thing that it also achieves is for our support portal, we use Salesforce Community Cloud. And one of the newest features that we have, which you see on the bottom here, is the ability for the first time for us to show you what did you actually buy and see, oh, I bought a gold license with these different dates, this node count, and then a convenient link back to the license portal. So it's kind of surfacing you to that information that if we didn't have all these things going on, we couldn't show you that. The next thing that feeds into the case search aspect of it is we have a custom Logstash plugin that Pius built that takes all of our case data, email data, feed items, and pushes it every 10 minutes into Elastic Cloud Cluster that allows us to do some of this search and analytics that Pius will go into. So as I transition to him, just be thinking about, we're trying to show you how we use the power of the Elastic Stack to improve our support and overall operations.
Right. Thanks, AJ. My name is Pius, and I'm a support engineer at Elastic. So I help our customers use Elastic Stack on a daily basis. And today I'm going to talk about how we use Elastic Stack internally for case search analytics. So back in the summer of 2016, we migrated our case system to Salesforce. And shortly after, we noticed a drop in the agent productivity. And it's because they were having a trouble finding existing cases related to the topics and error messages they were looking for using the out-of-the-box Salesforce search. And even when results were returned, they are not displayed in a user-friendly manner. So worked on a custom Logstash plugin that brings in data from four different objects in Salesforce, basically using two relationship cycle queries and joining them and denormalizing the data so that they can be displayed in Kibana. So the end result is that we have improved search recall. Our agents can now issue complex queries to look for the cases they're looking for The results are much more filterable and sortable thanks to Kibana. As an added benefit, we also get a single view of all the chronological display of all the communication between the customer and the agents. And since we're indexing all this data, we can also leverage the power of aggregations and Kibana to visualize different product and customer trends. And I'm going to show you some of that in the upcoming demo. We have this deployed on the Elastic Cloud and running on 5.x. The custom Logstash plugin uses the open source Salesforce Ruby client called REST-Force in the background. We also have Google OAuth integration so that agents can log in using their Google accounts. With Kibana, obviously, and XPack, we get PDEV reporting. And finally, we embedded one of our dashboards directly in Salesforce using Visualforce and Apex. And sometime in the future, we're going to start indexing KB articles and add natural language processing to our pipeline. Okay. So this is just a quick view of the case search. You can see there's a combination of term and case and phrase search info up here. Because we use Elasticsearch, right, we get the highlighting for Lucene, right, and we get like all the features of full text search. And this is an example of the case analytics where we can keep track of the number of cases, for example, associated with a specific product and what versions they affected, etc. And here is a screenshot of what the embedded dashboard looks like in our subscription object. And we share this with a consulting team and our solution architect team and sales team so they can actually quickly take a look at, hey, these are all the cases filed by the customer in the past year and what are the latest cases they filed and who filed it, etc., and what are the priorities of these tickets. So I want to jump straight to the demo here. So you can see the usual Kibana interface. I'm going to show you one of the dashboards that we use. So here's an example of a dashboard that has a more complex search. It's got some phrase searches, it's got some conditional clauses. You might have heard from the keynote address where Shai talked about back in 2016, there was a time when Kibana's all the tile map components stopped working in Kibana because MapQuest removed their mapping service from support. So this is the report that we send our PMs periodically every few days so that they can assess the impact of this issue. Right? We have some very specific queries here related to the error message that will show up when they get that problem. And from this, we can tell like what customers affected. Obviously, you don't see any customer data here because I'm running this demo locally with all the customer data removed for obvious reasons. But the PMs were able to tell what customers affected, what versions affected, and this kind of helps them quickly work with the engineering team to come up with our own mapping service to make sure that users continue to use the tile map components. And here's another one that's interesting. This one is kind of one of our byproduct type of dashboard. This is for Logstash, and we can see the case distribution of what versions of pure generally filed cases against. And because we're also doing keyword tagging as part of our Logstash pipeline, we can now get information on the distribution of operating system, right? Like what's popular out there, right? And this is the type of information that can help our product managers come up with a future supported platform based on this information. And similarly, we can also track product trends, like what features are popular, right? For Logstash, a lot of customers use queue systems. And we can chart the popularity of different queue systems over time. And you can actually see when Kafka becomes more popular than Redis for our customers, right? You can see the inflection point somewhere around here. So these are the type of dashboards that we have running. And obviously, we also have other dashboards that shows case load per agent, our top customers, like who files the most cases, and severities and things like that. I'm not going to be able to show you those dashboards because they might have customer information. But you can But as you can see, the Elastic Stack is not just for logging and metrics use case. This is just one example of using Elastic Stack for a business analytics use case. So I'm going to hand this over to Christina, who's going to now talk about customer early warning systems.
So I think the takeaway here is kind of, for me, a little bit, is so what, right? Like this helps support engineers, and it helps our product managers get smarter in terms of what they support, what versions we need to think about, what technology trends are happening among our customer base. But I actually work in our go-to-market organization. I support sales. And for us, aggregating all of this information has allowed us to create an early warning system. And so the phrase here, I think, has been really key for my thinking about this. Subscriptions are machines. If you're in a SaaS business, a subscription is a machine, and a non-renewal is an anomaly. And so we've taken our team and really started looking at all of these different data points about what's going on in a case, what customer firmographics information do we have, how active is this customer, what's been happening in their licenses, everything that Pius and AJ were talking about, to create an early warning system that actually projects our renewals within 5 percentage points of accuracy at least 90 days before the end of the contract period. So the way that we do that is first we define our factors. This was before we acquired Prelert and built our machine learning product. And so we tested a model the old school way with statistics, right? So we've gone through and we've looked at things like a customer's industry or their case activity, these sorts of things, and identified, is this statistically significant in terms of the historicals, what's been happening? Is it going to affect their likelihood to renew? Once we've done that, we made sure through work that AJ's CRM engineering team led that we could capture all that information and actually use it to model. And we do that live in real time inside of Salesforce. So whenever all of the architecture that he was talking about captures a change in event state, it literally will change the projection that we have on that customer within the same day. After that, we score. So we assign probabilities to all of these different inputs that kind of aggregates up for a particular customer what we think is actually going to happen. And then we monitor and alert on that. And I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like. So I mentioned already we do kind of a rolling forecast of what we think our customer health is. But this chart over here, this is interesting to me because the blue is the base value, let's say, of a pool of subscriptions by account team. The dark blue is the human forecast. And for those of you who work with salespeople, you know it can kind of be a fickle business, but perhaps also an extremely optimistic one. And then the teal here is the actual probability. So I highlighted these folks because I think this bottom one's super interesting. Okay, we have a base value of subscriptions. We have a human who's saying that they're going to crush it, or a combination of humans on an account team. And the actual probability is indicating that there's some health here, there's some health issues here that we need to address with these customers. Now what's interesting is when you do these models, you start them, you train them on the subscriptions, right? And what's actually started to happen is we've trained our humans. Okay, when we first started this, the distance between what the human thought was going to happen and what the model thought was going to happen was really wide because the humans were way too optimistic. We're now like a year in, and we actually see these trends really coming together and narrowing over time. And so our people are getting smarter at understanding what's going on with our customers because of the alerting system that we've created around that. We also proactively alert account teams when these negative events happen so that they can respond in real time. And finally, for those customers who didn't renew, we use that to go back and retrain our model, right? To go, is there a new indicator here that we need to respond to? Is something going on? How do we redefine this algorithm? So what falls to me at the end, and then we'll take a few questions if we can, is to talk a bit about where do we go from here. It's our goal to create a customer experience that is super dynamic and that really responds to you. And I think what Pius was showing highlights that in real time we can react not just to like the things you fill out in a case, right? I'm sure all of us have submitted cases at the companies that we interact with where you have to fill out some fields, and like that's a traditional relational database thing. We can actually do full text, like full sentiment analysis on what's going on and what people are writing, and that's really important to us in terms of evolving what our customer experience is going to be like. And the other thing we want to do is start getting predictive and understanding really a lot about your subscription and your use case so that we can proactively push information to you that is relevant. Like, hey, have you seen this GitHub article? Or here's what just came out in the latest release and it's super relevant to you because you're on a logging use case. These sorts of things, right? And then the last one, I alluded to it a little bit. When we first built this model, we did not have machine learning. I'm super excited about that. I think for those of us who work in the CRM space, that's going to be kind of a game changer for us inside of our organizations, both on the pipeline side and on the customer side, to sort of treat those things as machines and look for anomalies. So the very end, this slide, brought to you by Marty Messer, the VP of Elastic's customer care organization, who insisted we needed to have a kitten. But we are happy to take any questions that you guys have. And if not, we'll be over at the AMA in a few minutes. So I'll let.
Yeah, we got about time for about two questions. Any questions? Yes.
Do you guys have any plans to release the Logstash plugin that you wrote for pulling the data out of Salesforce and putting it out?
We have a Salesforce input plugin, which does kind of like an object by object pulling of the data. It is written by a community member. For my plugin, I can certainly share it at some point. I'm still adding more features to it, but it's more. It can be a little bit specific to our use case because I want to limit the number of like cycle queries and the fields that we fetch back. So there's some fields that I fetch back that are specific to our subscription object. But if you want to see the code, I can find me after the session. I can probably send you what I have. Thanks.
Cool. Any other questions?
So you mentioned embedding of your dashboards. So have you seen negative performance degradation with the embedding that you've performed?
It doesn't affect it runs within an iframe. So when in Kibana, when you click on the share option button, there's an iframe kind of there's like a shared URL that you can use, right? So you're basically just embedding within the iframe. So it will wait for the page to load. So I mean, there's some overhead, but it's not like it doesn't create like overhead where you have to wait 5 seconds for like the whole page to load, right? I mean, it's just that part of the page. The section that we added to the page layout might take longer to render.
Yeah, and just a quick add-on there. Okay, still on. We make sure on the rest of our pages, I think everybody, again, who works in the CRM space knows that most vendors are super fond of Visualforce embeds and like things that can really crawl the Salesforce page load time, and we're very thoughtful about which ones we actually choose to apply on which objects. And so we're trying as much as we can to not over-rely on those frames on the customer master that I was showing you, so that the Salesforce page load time is not impacted by like, just spans and spans of apps that are loading all at once. So.
And the embedding is pretty simple. It's pretty much just a simple Visualforce page based on a extension controller of our subscription objects, and we just get a subscription ID and pass it on to the shared URL that Kibana generates, and then just put it in an iframe. So.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time. Let's give a round of applause.